My earliest memories are not of carefree laughter or sun-drenched playgrounds, but of a persistent, dull ache in my chest. It was a subtle throb, a quiet whisper of something amiss, even before I understood what a heart was, or how fragile it could be. I was Ilara, a girl who loved stories and sunshine, but whose world was slowly, imperceptibly, being overshadowed by a shadow within her own body. Our family wasn't rich, but we weren't poor either. My father, a man of stern demeanor and even sterner financial principles, ran a small but respectable business. My elder brother, Rohan, and my younger sister, Priya, were the picture of robust health. They were boisterous, energetic, full of life, everything I secretly wished I could be. My mother, gentle and kind, always had a worried crease between her brows when she looked at me, a concern I didn't quite grasp then. The real trouble began when I was 8. The quiet ache escalated. It became a sharp, insistent pain, stealing my breath during playtime, leaving me pale and gasping. My lips would turn a faint blue, my fingers cold. My mother, her eyes wide with fear, took me to our local doctor. What followed was a blur of hushed conversations, worried glances, and finally, a referral to a specialist in the city. The journey to the city felt endless, the air thick with unspoken dread. The specialist's office was sterile, cold, and smelled faintly of antiseptic. I remember the cold gel on my chest as they performed an echocardiogram, the rhythmic thump, thump of my own heart, amplified and displayed on a screen, a strange alien landscape of valves and chambers. Then came the diagnosis: congenital heart defect. A hole in my heart, they said, a significant one that was causing my heart to work overtime, straining under the burden. It wasn't just a defect, it was a ticking time bomb. The doctor, a kind-faced woman with weary eyes, explained it all to my parents in grave tones. She spoke of a complex surgery, a delicate procedure that would repair the defect, a chance for me to live a normal life. But it was expensive, terribly, prohibitively expensive. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. My father, however, remained impassive, his face a mask of stone. That evening, the air in our small living room was heavy, suffocating. My mother pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. "Please, Anil, we have to do something. It's our daughter. Her life is at stake." My father sat across from her, his gaze fixed on some distant point, avoiding her pleading eyes, avoiding mine. I sat quietly in a corner, a small, trembling bird, understanding only fragments of their conversation, but acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. He finally spoke, his voice low, devoid of emotion. "The cost is astronomical, Mina. We simply cannot afford it." My mother, aghast, retorted, "But we have savings. We can take a loan. We can sell something." She was willing to sacrifice everything: her wedding jewelry, the small plot of land my grandfather had left her, anything. But my father shook his head, a gesture of finality that pierced me to my core. "Those savings are for Rohan's education, for his future, and for Priya's dowry. They are our healthy children, our investments. Ilara is already sick. What if the surgery fails? What if she remains a burden? We cannot risk everything for an uncertain outcome." His words, delivered with chilling pragmatism, were a death sentence. Sick, burden, uncertain outcome. I was not a child, a daughter, a person deserving of life. I was a calculation, a risk, a liability. My healthy siblings, their futures, were deemed more important than my very existence. The sting of those words was far worse than any physical pain I had ever felt. It wasn't just my heart that broke that day. It was my spirit, shattered into a million pieces by the man who was supposed to protect me. My mother wept openly, her shoulders shaking, but my father remained unyielding. He had made his decision. My life was not worth the cost. My mother, bless her soul, refused to give up. She was a lioness, fierce and determined. Without my father's help, she turned to her own family, distant relatives, even neighbors. She sold her cherished gold bangles, her intricate silver anklets, piece by agonizing piece. She took on extra tailoring work, her nimble fingers flying over fabrics late into the night, her eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. I would often wake up to the whirring sound of her sewing machine, a constant reminder of her sacrifice, a stark contrast to my father's indifference. It took months, agonizing months, of her relentless effort, her quiet dignity in the face of my father's cold shoulder. Each penny she earned, each favor she called in, was a testament to her unwavering love. Finally, miraculously, she gathered enough. It wasn't the full amount, but enough for a more affordable, though still risky, surgery at a government hospital. The day of the operation was a blur of fear and hope. My mother's tear-streaked face was the last thing I saw before the anesthesia took hold. The surgery was long, complex, and fraught with complications. I remember waking up, a searing pain in my chest, a massive scar running down its center, a constant reminder of my battle. The recovery was arduous. I was weak, fragile, confined to bed for weeks. My mother was my constant companion, nursing me back to health with a fierce tenderness that warmed my soul, even as the physical pain lingered. My father visited me once in the hospital, a brief, awkward visit. He stood by my bed, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze distant. He didn't offer a word of comfort, no apology, no sign of remorse. He just nodded curtly, mumbled something about "glad you're recovering," and left. It was then I understood. His refusal wasn't just about money. It was about a fundamental lack of love, a profound indifference to my suffering. The scar on my chest was not just a physical wound. It was a brand of his rejection, etched permanently into my flesh and my memory. Life after the surgery was a constant struggle. I couldn't run and play like Rohan and Priya. I was often short of breath, tired easily. My heart, though repaired, was still delicate, a fragile machine that needed careful handling. My father's attitude never changed. He continued to prioritize my siblings. Rohan received the best tutors, cricket coaching, and a brand new motorcycle for his 18th birthday. Priya had endless new dresses, dance lessons, and a lavish coming-of-age party. I, on the other hand, received hand-me-downs, a quiet expectation to help with household chores, and the occasional pointed remark about my fragile health limiting my potential. I became acutely aware of my otherness. While Rohan and Priya basked in my father's attention and financial largesse, I faded into the background, a ghost in my own home. This feeling of being second best, of being unwanted, fueled a quiet fire within me. I couldn't compete physically, but I could compete intellectually. I buried myself in books, finding solace and strength in knowledge. I excelled in school, driven by a desperate need to prove my worth, not to my father, but to myself. Every good grade, every scholarship was a small victory against the silent judgment that permeated our home. My mother, a silent pillar of support, encouraged my academic pursuits. She saw the potential in me, the resilience that had blossomed from my suffering. "You are strong, Alara," she would whisper, "stronger than you know." Her words were the only balm to my wounded spirit. I worked tirelessly, fueled by a potent cocktail of ambition and resentment. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to thrive, to build a life so robust and independent that no one, especially not my father, could ever dismiss me as a burden again. After high school, I secured a scholarship to a prestigious university, a feat that surprised everyone, including my father. He gave a grudging nod of approval, but offered no financial assistance. My mother, once again, stepped up, using her meager savings to cover my living expenses. I worked part-time jobs, studied late into the night, and often went without proper meals, but I never complained. Each hardship was a reminder of what I was fighting for: my independence, my self-worth, my future. I graduated with honors, securing a coveted position in a burgeoning tech company. My career trajectory was swift and steep. I moved to a different city, a vibrant metropolis, eager to shed the shadows of my past and build a new life for myself. Years turned into decades. I poured my energy into my career, into building a life where I was in control. I learned to manage my health, to listen to my body, to prioritize my well-being. The scar on my chest, once a symbol of pain and rejection, became a badge of honor, a testament to my survival. I rarely visited home. The memories were too painful, the unspoken resentments too heavy. My mother would call regularly, her voice a comforting presence. She'd update me on Rohan and Priya. Rohan had struggled with his business, often needing my father's financial bailouts. Priya, after a lavish wedding my father had funded, was living a comfortable, if somewhat aimless life. I built a successful life. My apartment overlooked the city skyline, a symbol of how far I had come from the small, suffocating home of my childhood. I had financial security, a fulfilling career, and a quiet sense of peace. But the scar, both visible and invisible, remained. It was a constant reminder of the profound betrayal, a wound that, though healed, still throbbed with a phantom ache whenever I thought of my father. Then the call came. It was from Rohan, a number I hadn't seen in years. His voice, usually boisterous and confident, was laced with an unfamiliar tremor. "Elara," he began, his tone uncharacteristically subdued, "it's about Papa. He's not well." My father, the impregnable rock, the man who had seemed immune to the frailties of life, was now sick. He had suffered a severe stroke, leaving him partially paralyzed and requiring extensive long-term care. The medical bills, Rohan explained, were astronomical. His voice, once so full of entitlement, now sounded desperate. "The doctors say he needs round-the-clock nursing, specialized therapy. It's going to cost a fortune," Rohan rambled, not even pausing for a breath. "Priya and we've contributed what we can, but it's not enough. Our businesses aren't doing well and, well, you know how it is. We were hoping you could help." The sheer audacity of his request took my breath away. They, the important children, the investments, were now struggling, and they were turning to me, the burden, the sick one, for salvation. I listened in silence, a cold knot forming in my stomach. The irony was brutal, almost poetic. The man who had refused to pay for my life-saving heart surgery, deeming me an uncertain outcome, now lay incapacitated, his own future uncertain, and his important children were begging me to fund his care. The memories flooded back. My mother's tear-streaked face, the cold gel on my chest, the doctor's grave pronouncements, and my father's chilling words. "Elara is already sick. What if she remains a burden?" "How much are we talking about, Rohan?" I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. He rattled off a figure that made my own substantial bank account wince. It was indeed a fortune, enough to significantly impact even my comfortable life. "And what have you and Priya contributed?" I pressed, knowing the answer would be paltry compared to the need. He mumbled some figures, clearly embarrassed, confirming my suspicions. They had given a pittance, expecting me to shoulder the majority of the burden. "I see," I said, letting the silence hang heavy between us. "Let me think about it." I hung up, my hand trembling slightly. The phone felt heavy, a conduit to a past I had tried so hard to outrun. My heart, the very organ my father had deemed unworthy of saving, thumped a steady, defiant rhythm in my chest. The anger, buried deep for decades, began to surface, hot and unforgiving. Days turned into a week. Rohan and Priya called relentlessly, their pleas growing more frantic, their entitlement thinly veiled. "It's your father, Elara. You have to help him," Priya whined. "He's family. You can't just abandon him," Rohan demanded. Their words, intended to shame me, only fueled my resolve.
Abandon him? He had abandoned me when I was a vulnerable child, when my life hung by a thread. I decided to visit my mother first. She was older now, her hair streaked with silver, her face etched with the lines of a life lived with quiet sacrifice. She looked tired, burdened by my father's illness and her children's helplessness. "Ilara," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears as she embraced me. "You've come." I sat with her, listening to her recount my father's decline, her voice filled with a familiar, weary love. She didn't pressure me, but her unspoken hope was palpable. "Ma," I finally said, "do you remember what Papa said when I needed my surgery?" Her eyes, still so clear, clouded with pain. "I remember every word, Beta." She reached out, her frail hand covering the scar on my chest. "I remember him saying Rohan and Priya were his important children, his investments. I remember him saying I was a burden, not worth the risk." My voice was steady, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. "He chose to let me die, Ma. He chose to prioritize their futures over my life." My mother squeezed my hand, her gaze filled with understanding. "I know, my child. I know the pain you carry." She didn't try to defend him, didn't try to minimize my trauma. She simply acknowledged it, and in that acknowledgement, I found a flicker of peace. Finally, I went to see my father. He lay in a sterile hospital room, a shadow of the stern, imposing man I remembered. His eyes, though dulled by illness, still held a flicker of recognition, perhaps even a hint of shame when he saw me. Rohan and Priya were there, hovering awkwardly, their faces a mix of anxiety and expectation. The air was thick with unspoken tension.
"Ilara, thank God you're here," Rohan exclaimed, trying to sound relieved. "We've been so worried." Priya nodded vehemently, her eyes darting between me and our father. "We need to make a decision about Papa's care. It's urgent." I walked to my father's bedside, looking down at the man who had once held my life in his hands and chosen to let it slip away. He looked frail, vulnerable, a stark contrast to the unyielding figure of my childhood. I placed my hand on the cold rail of his bed. "Papa," I began, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the nervous chatter of my siblings, "I'm here to tell you my decision." Rohan and Priya leaned in, their faces alight with hope. My father's eyes, fixed on mine, seemed to hold a desperate plea. "I have considered your request, Rohan, Priya," I continued, my gaze sweeping over them, then back to my father. "And I have decided what I will do." I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the weight of the moment settle. The past, the present, and the future converged in that sterile room. "When I was 8 years old, I needed life-saving heart surgery," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion, recounting the story as if it were a historical fact, not a deep personal wound. The doctors said it was expensive, but possible. My mother begged and pleaded for your help, Papa. You refused. You said the money was for Rohan's education and Priya's dowry. You said I was already sick, an uncertain outcome, a burden. You chose to prioritize their futures over my life. My words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Rohan shifted uncomfortably. Priya looked away, her face flushing. My father's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something, regret, shame, passing through them. My mother, a woman of incredible strength and love, sold her jewelry, worked tirelessly, and borrowed from everyone she knew to save my life. She gave me a chance when you refused to. I paused again, letting the truth sink in, letting the full weight of his past actions fill the room. "I survived, Papa," I said, my voice rising slightly, a tremor of long-suppressed emotion finally breaking through. "I not only survived, but I thrived. I built a life for myself, a life of independence and success, despite your abandonment, despite carrying the scar of your rejection on my chest and in my soul. I gestured vaguely to my chest, a subtle reminder of the physical manifestation of his betrayal. Now, I continued, my gaze locking with my father's, you are in need. Your important children, your investments, are unable to bear the burden of your care. And you and they expect me, the burden, the sick one, to step in and fund your future, just as my future was once in your hands. I saw a tear escape my father's eye, tracing a path down his withered cheek. It was a single tear, perhaps of pain, perhaps of understanding, perhaps of belated regret. I will not abandon you, Papa, I said, my voice softening, but with a steely resolve underlying it. I will ensure you receive the best care possible. I will pay for your medical expenses, your nursing, your therapy. I will ensure you live out your days in comfort and dignity. Rohan and Priya visibly relaxed, relief washing over their faces, but I wasn't finished. However, I stated, my eyes now sweeping over Rohan and Priya, this comes with conditions. This is not for you. This is for the man who is my father, despite his choices. And it is a testament to the person I chose to become, not the person he tried to make me. You two, I said, looking directly at my siblings, will not receive a single penny from my contributions, and you will not inherit a single penny from my father's estate, should there be anything left after his care. Their faces fell, shock and outrage replacing their relief. What? Rohan sputtered, his voice rising. That's not fair. We're his children. Priya's eyes flashed with anger. You can't just decide that, Alara. It's our inheritance. I turned back to my father, whose eyes were now wide with a mixture of horror and understanding. I will set up a trust, Papa, managed by an independent third party. All my contributions will go directly to your care. Any remaining assets will be used to ensure your continued well-being. Upon your passing, any residual funds will be donated to a charity that supports children with congenital heart defects in my mother's name. My mother, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, a small, knowing smile on her lips. This is my repayment, Papa, I said, my voice firm. Not for what you did to me, but for what you didn't do. This is my way of ensuring that no other child is deemed a burden or an uncertain outcome by their own family. This is my way of honoring the mother who saved my life and of finally laying to rest the ghost of the little girl you chose to abandon. My father, unable to speak, could only meet my gaze. In his eyes, I saw not just regret, but a profound understanding of the consequences of his actions. He had made his choice decades ago, and now he was living with the stark, undeniable reality of it. Rohan and Priya continued to protest, their voices rising in indignant fury, but their words were just background noise to me. My decision was made, and it was final. I had walked into that room a daughter carrying the heavy weight of a past betrayal. I walked out a woman who had finally reclaimed her narrative, a woman who had, in her own way, delivered justice. The scar on my chest still throbbed, a silent reminder of my journey, but now it felt less like a wound and more like a symbol of strength, resilience, and the enduring power of a heart that, despite everything, had learned to beat on its own terms.